today I'm joined by a family which I think is unique in tennis. Trevor, who was born in South Africa, Daphne, who was born in Australia, and their son Charlie, who was also born in Australia. I'm talking about the Fancutt family. Now, Trevor, why do you think you're unique?
Well, in tennis we are very unique in that, fortunately for us, all of our sons followed in the tennis footsteps. We didn't have clashing sports. So as a result, we were all able to work together as a family in helping to coach the boys and foster their careers. And what makes us unique is that through that, every member of our family played Wimbledon. And I classify Wimbledon one of the most important tournaments in the world. And for all of us to have played that, I think is something quite unique.
Yeah, I think we'd have to go along with that. That is tremendous. To think that only one family in the world actually all played at Wimbledon. This is quite special, I feel. Talking about Wimbledon, you just returned from Wimbledon. What were your thoughts on Wimbledon this year? Let's talk about the ladies, for example. Now, just before I go on, you said that you cried this year at Wimbledon.
Well, I did actually, and I think I was joined by every spectator in the final. I mean, the people were, sort of saying farewell to a great champion in Martina, but they were also hailing a girl who played a fantastic match. I mean, Conchita played absolutely fabulous tennis to win that. And the crowd just applauded the runner-up equally as much as the champion. And the emotions of the people were just, something that you see once in a lifetime, maybe.
Mm. Now, Daphne, you're obviously there as well. What did you feel about this? I mean, did you have a similar feeling?
Well, it's the first match at Wimbledon that I cried at the end of the match, and I just couldn't help it. I mean, it was just absolutely fantastic. I think I've been at Wimbledon now every year for the last 8 years, since the last 8 clubs started, and to me it's the best women's final ever, both from the crowd and the emotion, and I think I've never seen before where the champion walked around and also the runner-up walked around, and they both had such affection to each other. I think it did a fantastic lot for tennis and unbelievable for women's tennis. It actually put a lot of people to rest, because people had said, without Steffi, that standard women's tennis was this and that. Well, I thought it was such a great match that it just put women's tennis right back up there.
That's it, yeah. Charlie, to bring you in, I first met Charlie at the first one of my family I actually met. You were there presumably as well, and you didn't cry, did you?
No, actually I missed the women's final, so unfortunately I missed it. But I tell you, anyone who's been on centre court, particularly, there's certain moments where the atmosphere, it just creates a good atmosphere. When the men's champion walks out to defend his title, there's a magic feeling in the air then. When the final starts, particularly the men's or ladies final, they get up to serve and everything just gets quiet. I mean, in another sport everyone cheers, and you don't get that silence that you get in tennis. And it just sends a little thing up your back of your neck.
Yeah, make your hair go.
So, Wimbledon, even walking into Wimbledon, when you've played there, it's the one time you go to a tournament and you really think, gee, I wish I was playing again.
Yeah, that's great. Now, Daphne, you have 2 other sons, Michael and Christopher. Tell us a little bit about those.
Well, Michael actually played a couple of great matches at Wimbledon. He reached the semi-final of the men's doubles and lost 7-5 in the 5th to McNamee and Cash, actually.
Right.
It was a great match. They had a chance for the match, but, it was one of the most exciting matches at Wimbledon that year. Michael is, I call the quiet one of the boys, even-tempered. The youngest fellow, Christopher, was possibly had the most talent of all of them. He's 6'4", lean, and possibly the greatest potential. But unfortunately, in his very young, early age, he had a injury to his ankle, which was very, very bad. He fell over backwards, and all the muscles from the ankle were ripped off. And he never really came back into tennis after that. He met a nice young girl and decided to get married.
Yeah. How how's the marriage status for you, Charlie? I mean, are you married or not? That's one thing.
I've been a confirmed bachelor for a long while, and people have got quite a shock. I've got a girl from England actually living with me.
Right.
Lovely young girl, 26-year-old from London. She's a zookeeper, and she's come out to Australia to live with me the last 4 months, and she was very happy we came back to Wimbledon because she got visiting all her friends, and she's coming down next week for the Lew Hoad Classic.
Oh, she's coming down. Yeah. Going back to you then, Trevor. Now, one thing I know that I've read about you, you played with the very, very famous Jaroslav Drobny. I think it was in 1956.
I did, yeah.
And what's your thoughts and recollections on that?
Well, it was a most exciting thing for me. I was a young player without much reputation, and I had admired him being a left-hander the same as I am, and I watched every one of his matches, and I just happened to be in a tournament prior to the French Championships when he came in to the dressing room and sort of asked me if I had a partner for the French, and I said no, I didn't, and he said, well, we must both be bad players because I haven't got a partner either. He said, we better play together. Well, he was number 4 in the world at that time, and you can imagine me as a young player, I nearly fell over backwards. It was just too much. And we played in the French together, and of course the general feeling was, who's this guy playing with Drobny? And we reached the semi-finals of the French and lost to Lew Hoad and Ashley Cooper in the semis.
You lost in the semis?
Yeah.
Because prior to that, he played Ken Rosen, of course, in the singles, didn't he, at Wimbledon? And he'd won it on the 11th or 10th, I think. He'd played 11 times against Rosen and won it. That would seem a pretty popular win in tennis. Would you agree with that? Would you agree with that, Daphne?
Yes, it was a very popular win. I even remember a lot of the Australians were saying, "Oh, come on, hope Drobny wins because Ken's got plenty of time. You know, he's only a young fellow." And
at 19.
And 19, yes. And I mean, here you have a great champion who was trying again and again and again. And although we wanted Ken to win, we also were happy for Drobny to win. Unfortunately, as history shows, Ken never did win because he turned professional, and that's just how fate happens, isn't it?
It's like an Van Lendl coming back next year at Wimbledon, and in the final, I couldn't imagine too many people not cheering for him to win his first Wimbledon, and they turn around like that, and so I think that there's a big similarity. In fact, the similarity as well is that I played doubles with Van Lendl at Wimbledon. We were good mates from juniors. Yeah. And I played against him at Wimbledon one year and beat him. But we had some good doubles matches. We played quite a few tournaments, and I know what Dad feels like. You get the red carpet treatment when you're playing number 1 in the world. Mm-hmm. And we played at Wimbledon one year together and won a round and lost to McEnroe and Fleming.
Did you? Yeah, McEnroe and Fleming, a pretty good duo there, I think.
Yeah. It's actually quite funny, that match, because Ivan had just lost to Henri Leconte in the singles, so I thought he'd be pretty keen to get out. You know, he used to leave Wimbledon pretty fast, and I said to him, well, you're going to be trying the doubles? He said, yeah, I'd have to give McEnroe a hard time. If we beat him, I don't mind staying an extra day.
Yeah.
We'll be lost in 4, so.
Yeah. Now, we have a book here. This is a book here called, the story of the Davis Cup. Now, both of you played you played for South Africa, you played for Australia.
No, I was just in the squad as a young player, but no, it was a bit tough in those days to get in the team.
But you played for South Africa.
I played for South Africa, yes. Yeah.
Now, the Davis Cup, I think, started about 1900. Still going strong now. Went through a bad period, didn't it, in the middle 70s? Do you recall that, or?
For us, I don't think so, because I think they were changing formats and stuff like this. With professional tennis coming in, they were faced with the situation of players having to sacrifice prize money at tournaments to play Davis Cup, and I think it took them quite a while to adjust to how and how they play. Because in our days, when I played Davis Cup, we got our expenses and £5 a day.
What year was that?
In 1957.
Right, £5 a day, sort of an expense.
As pocket money, yes, yeah.
And what will they get today for playing the Davis Cup?
I wouldn't really know, but they've got to sort of compensate the players for the possibility of winning or doing well in a tournament with fairly high prize money, so I'm sure their compensations are much higher than that. I know that for a fact, but I'm really not into what they actually get because I haven't been concerned with that.
But how many times did you actually play then for South Africa?
Well, I played, actually the first match I ever played was against Spain.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, we played in the, I had Abe Seagull and Gordon Forbes and I were in the team, and we played in the Real Club de Barcelona, and I think they had Kuda and Martinez played for them in that one, and we beat them, but we had some very tough matches in doing so. But it was a good memory.
And Charlie, okay, you're a member of the team. I mean, did you think you were going to get a game any time, or were you hoping to?
We were two young players given a chance to play against the older players, and I remember one time winning one match 6-4 against one of the guys who was going to play, and I got Neil Fraser took me aside and told me what for. You know, it was a great experience, and it was just very tough because the team was so many good players for so long, and it's only recently that you know your results start to look a bit better. I made the round of 16 at the Australian Open, and I never even put it on a resume before. And then a few years ago they wrote up how well Australian players had done because 3 made the round of 16. So suddenly I thought, well, in my day, if you didn't make the semi, it wasn't really a great result.
But today, I mean, to make the last 16 of any Grand Slam tournament must be pretty special, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
fantastic.
good money.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
If the young players made the round of 16 in a Grand Slam tournament, he's really made it, I would say, because financially and everything like that, you know, it's a hard road to get to that round of 16 at any Grand Slam. I mean, actually, one of the proudest things I am is that our family, we've had 4 of us have made Grand Slam semi-finals, only in doubles, but I think it's still something I'm very proud of.
4 out of 5.
Yeah, the youngest fellow
with his injury.
His injury didn't come, but I mean, we did at least get to a Grand Slam semi-final, which means that they have around the world now, first in London, they have what we call a last 8 club. And if you reach the quarters of the singles or the semis of doubles, you can become a member of that last 8 club for your life. And they've started it in Australia, and I've heard at Wimbledon this year that they may be starting it at the French. And it's a wonderful place. In fact, it was one of Lew's favourite places at Wimbledon. When Lew went to Wimbledon, he was king of the last 8 club. And I mean that. Everybody used to love going to the last 8 club to see Lew. From all over the world, players went into that last 8 club to see Lew and Jenny. And this year we really missed them both. In fact, when Jenny wrote to me in Australia, she said, "I'll see you at the last 8 club." But of course they didn't get there. And you know, there's no doubt about it. It was a place that was one of favourites for Lew. Now,
you were both born, obviously, very, very closely to Lew Hoad and Ken Rosen and people like that. But I understand that you actually employed Rod Laver at one time. Is that correct? Between you, or
myself? No, I was working for the Dunlop Sports Company in those days, and on sales promotion on the sporting department. And for the young players to succeed and have the opportunity to play tennis in those days, they were given jobs in the sporting companies where they didn't have to do much work, but it enabled them to pay them a salary, and the company paid expenses for them to go to all the tournaments in the various. And I had many occasions where I drove right round the Australian circuit in a company car, taking Rod Laver and any other players that were Dunlop that had to go round with me. And in the early stages, I was playing in the tournaments as well, but later I wasn't. But and that's where I say he actually worked for the company, but he was under my jurisdiction in that we used him for exhibition matches, and I could tell you thousands of stories about the trips we had. But
I bet you can.
Yeah, it was amazing, it was.
Now, that sort of brings me to young tennis, or young people playing tennis, and I know that, Charlie, you attended the Australian Sports Institute in Canberra. What did that do for you?
I think that for me it was excellent because I went there a little bit older than the other ones. I went there at 20 years old, and I found that I was experienced enough to use the facilities very well. In those times, it was very much getting up and running, and the coaches were very busy with a lot of administration and everything else, and I think that some of the younger ones sort of got lost. And what Australia's tended to do recently is get away from centralising the system and having people stay with their own private coaches. And in fact, they offered the choice of the best 20 young players last year in Australia, which your choice, stay with your coach or go to Canberra for the Australian Institute of Sport, and 16 of those 20 opted to stay at home, funded at home. When the choice is funded away or funded at home, it makes a difference. But I did benefit from it because I was old enough to use it as a training experience. But I'd trained at Hopman's camp in America too, so I knew how to train properly. I'd been given that attitude and that.
That's an important attitude.
Yeah. And Hopman's was equally as important to me.
I think attitude, I was fortunate to speak to Jack Nicklaus's caddy once, and he said that Jack Nicklaus, there's only a couple of things he can actually do. One is hit a golf ball with a club, the rest of it's all up here, you know, the whole demeanour of the person. And attitude is the thing that's so important in sport. Would you not agree?
Absolutely, it's the key, to have a good attitude. Wendy Turnbull said to me one time, you know, she used to come home, she was our first pupil to play at Wimbledon, right? And she used to come home and say to me, Daphne, you know, it's 40% attitude. It's 40% mental and 30% attitude. And the next couple of years she'd come home, she'd say it's 60% attitude and 60% mental. Last time she said it's 80% attitude and 80% mental, you know, and the rest is playing, because everybody's a great player that's in these Grand Slams. Everybody's great. It's how they apply themselves, the attitude and the mental side of it, as to whether they can win those big points, whether they can win those big matches. I mean, you've only got to look at your recent Wimbledon to see that. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about attitude. Now, a book, The Centre Court of the Game, by radio commentator Max Robertson. I'm sure you've heard of Max Robertson, commentating the game for 30 or 40 years. He was, in fact, in Lew's club, there's a page from his book, really, and he was saying that without any doubt, if there was a Champion of Champions tournament, and all the great players at their peak were put together to play, for his money, there's only one person that he thinks would win, and that would have been Lew Hoad. Now, he also adds, by the way, that the other finalist would be Pancho Gonzalez. Now, Lew must have had everything that was going for him in regard to attitude, flair, charisma. How did you, I mean, you've known him for so long, what sort of person was he?
I'd just like to speak about that, because being the female here, I'd like to say that Lew was absolutely gorgeous. He was gorgeous to look at and gorgeous as a person. And one time Gonzalez stood in, we have a tennis centre in Australia, right? And Gonzalez stood in our garden, and he said to and I said to him, how, if yourself excluded, who do you think is the greatest tennis player ever? And he said, if there was a pot of gold put there, and we said, whoever wins this pot of gold is the greatest tennis player of all time, he said, without a doubt, Lew Hoad would walk it in.
Yes, it was said also that, he was gifted beyond measure. I mean, that is some tribute to somebody, you know, that it really is. And we're obviously here to be involved, we're all going to be involved with the Lew Hoad Seniors Classic. Now, how do you see this tournament going? I mean, you know, tell us a bit about the players. You know, who? That's right, Charlie. You can give us
I can talk about the younger ones.
Go on, then.
I've just turned 35, so I just became eligible. I think that the mix is great. I mean, one thing good is that, funny, the seniors have been around for a while in tennis. It's only fairly new, and they're finally getting the formula right. They're starting to do a doubles event with one younger guy and one older guy. Yeah. And that seems to be working very well at the events that they have. They have some tournaments have singles, and they put the guys together for the doubles. But I think that in my vintage, or a little bit older than me, I quit fairly early. But Paul McNamee and Peter McNamara strike me as two guys I always love watching play. Paul, talk about attitude. There's no in business or tennis that matches Paul McNamee for attitude. His successes speak for themselves. Peter Mac is one of the flowing players of the game. In fact, one of the great memories of me that I have, and in fact thought of just after Lew passed away, I was driving down the motorway in London, was that when Lew and Peter at the Hopman Cup in Australia would ask to give a demonstration hit, and they just hit with each other, and Peter is very fluent, but just to see Lew twice as fluent again and just blowing these shots that he played was one of the great memories for me in tennis, let alone all matches and everything else. Just that 10 minutes of hitting that I saw them hit together, it just was marvellous. And anyway, they're two of the younger players I think will
whoever are the older players, I like to call it the older seniors. That's from 45 and above. Is that right? The older senior,
That's
45
right.
and above. So whoever the older senior, it could even be you, couldn't it? Because you're going to play, aren't you?
I'm pretty close to that. I think I turn 60 just before Ken does.
60 is the old buggers, by the way.
So all right, you might get paired with Paul McNamee or Peter McNamara. You'd be pretty content with that, obviously, what Charlie just said.
No, I think we're going to have quite a unique thing in that Charlie and I are playing as father and son in this one,
Right.
which is going to be quite a thrill for us.
Legal.
But just in defence of the oldies at this stage, you're talking about Lew and Ken. I have two vivid memories of both of them, and they summed them both up pretty well. One was when I played Wimbledon and played Lew in the second round, the second year running. I thought, well, I'll really have a good try on this one. And we got to 4-all on the first set. And at 4-all in the first set, I served 4 first serves. I did absolutely nothing wrong. I served 4 first serves and never touched one volley. And then he got up and served on the other side, and I touched one of his serves. And I just suddenly thought, well, what can I possibly do against this? So that gave you this explosive energy that Lew had. I mean, he could hit a winner off your best shot at any time.
Amazing.
Not only did he have great shots, but he moved like a ballet dancer. He was so fluid. And then another time I played in a pro tour match, and I went down before my match and warmed up with Kenny Rosewell. And we just hit up and rallied, and eventually it started to come through into my brain that we'd had about 10 practice rallies, and I had ended every rally.
Yeah.
He had not missed one single shot in the whole of our practice hit-up. And it sums him up in that Ken hardly ever made an error. I mean, he was just such a fantastically controlled player that it was just, that to me sums the two players up.
Going back, let's go back. What, is this the first time you've actually been to the Camp Tennis?
First time for me, yes.
For
Yes.
all of you?
No.
Not for you, okay. Well, let's ask you then. This is the first time for you. Again, sorry to just...
Yeah.
But what was your first impression when you just sort of drove up that road? I mean, what did... I mean, this 67 or 68 that you came across, and it was a finca, a little which is like a little farmhouse on top of a hill. What was your first impressions of it?
I liked it. I think it's got a very friendly, soft feel to it, and you know, anybody that's in the tennis business like we are would always feel happy about having 8 tennis courts. So just having 8 tennis courts anywhere near a large city is something that anybody who wants to get in the tennis business would regard as being a great asset.
Mm.
So I was impressed.
There's one thing I want to ask you. And I read something about that. You introduced the feed-in
Consolation.
Yeah, I can't even read my own writing. Feed-in consolation into Australian tournaments. What does that mean?
Well, I went to America with the boys, and in those days they had very strong American junior tournaments. But in many cases, what I was impressed with was the fact that you went to a tournament and you could get beaten by one of the seeds in the first or second round.
Right.
Now, their feed-in consolation fed the losers back into a separate consolation.
A plate tournament.
It's not really a plate because you fed in right up to the quarterfinals.
Mm.
So the plate normally is first or second round losers
Right.
go into the plate. But this one, you lost in, say, the quarterfinal, the main draw. You went back into the feed-in, and you could still come 5th in the tournament.
Right.
Although you'd been beaten perhaps first round,
Right.
you could still end up, when the results of the tournament came out, you would be in the top 5 out of that particular tournament.
So that again was something totally new.
And it gave you a lot of matches.
Of course it did.
You know, I had some teams over there later, and some of our kids lost first round. Well, they had a 2-set match, that was it. But they ended up playing 4 rounds of the feed-in. So they now got another 4 more matches in. So from me as a manager, I was getting great value for the boys doing that. So therefore, when I brought it back to Australia, I thought it'd be a great idea, but unfortunately, it hasn't been pushed as well as it should, and I think it's basically a time factor and also an organising factor that the people have tended not to push it as hard as they should. You know.
Yeah, interesting. Just going back again to the tournament we're involved with now. I was walking around with Trevor around the centre court there today, and he thinks that the court is going to be very good for good tennis. I mean, some of the courts are much faster. How do you see the standard? I mean, what sort of, right, we know he's playing, but is he going to produce good tennis? Do you think?
I think it'll be excellent, because doubles, you can get a bit slower these days from singles, but in doubles it doesn't make much difference. And I think you'll find that the tennis will be very, very competitive. And at the same time, like the seniors event, I was watching some matches at Wimbledon. It's just, you get this great competition, but then suddenly you get some, someone cracks a joke, or one guy has a go at the other guy, and they can have a laugh and enjoy, like Yannick Noah did on the tour, or LeConte or something like that. You've got guys. It's just, there's nothing better than being entertained as well as seeing some great sport. And I'm actually looking forward to watching some of the matches that we don't play in. I mean, I've never seen Manolos and Tana play. Right. And I heard stories about him when I was a young boy about how he topspin lobbed everybody, and I'm very keen to see. I've never seen him play. Arantes, I'm keen to watch him play as well. I saw Roger Taylor actually play a match. He beat Bjorn Borg at Wimbledon, and it's the last time I've seen him play. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of the guys play that I haven't seen. And
now, it's all men this time. I mean, I don't know whether this